Have you ever noticed how some relationships begin like perfect stories? Everything seems wonderful. The connection feels deep. The attention feels special. And you believe you've found something genuine. But beneath this perfect surface, something more troubling often develops. So gradually, you barely notice until you're caught in its grip. The most dangerous relationships don't announce their harmful nature from the beginning. Instead, they start with all the markers of love and care, making their eventual transformation all the more confusing. This is why so many intelligent, self-aware people find themselves trapped in dynamics they would have recognized as harmful had they appeared suddenly rather than developing over time. Those early warning signs are typically subtle: a slightly controlling text, disguised as concern, a small criticism wrapped in a compliment, a moment of isolation, framed as special connection. We dismiss these moments because they seem minor compared to the good parts, or because we've been taught that relationships require compromise. What we don't realize is that these are often the first threads in a web that will eventually restrict us. What makes this pattern so effective is how care transforms into control through nearly imperceptible shifts. The partner who once texted to make sure you got home safely now questions why you were out so late. The person who complimented your social skills now subtly discourages certain friendships. The attention that once made you feel special now feels like surveillance. Each step seems connected to the previous one, making it difficult to identify exactly when things changed. Perhaps the most painful aspect of this process is the gradual loss of self. You begin questioning your perceptions, doubting your feelings, and adjusting your behavior to maintain peace. The confident person who entered the relationship slowly disappears, replaced by someone who constantly second-guesses their thoughts and feelings. Even more troubling, this happens while you're still receiving messages of love from your partner, creating a profound confusion about what love actually means. Understanding this pattern isn't about creating paranoia, but developing awareness of how healthy love differs from its distorted version. As we explore deeper, you'll discover how modern relationship culture often normalizes these harmful patterns, making them even harder to identify. Section 1. Modern love distortion. Modern relationships often transform from genuine connection into possession without us noticing the shift. You enter the relationship seeking companionship, understanding, and mutual growth. But gradually, the dynamic changes. Your partner begins treating you more like an achievement or possession than a person with independent thoughts and feelings. They measure your worth by how well you fulfill their needs and expectations, rather than appreciating your authentic self. This possessive approach manifests through constant checking of your whereabouts, monitoring your social media activity, or expressing disapproval when you spend time with others. At its core, this behavior reflects a fundamental misunderstanding of love, confusing control with care and ownership with commitment. What makes this particularly dangerous is how it activates your natural desire to prove your dedication, creating a cycle where you continuously sacrifice more of your independence to demonstrate loyalty, only to find that no amount of sacrifice is ever quite enough. They often introduce an invisible competition into the relationship, pitting you against ghosts from their past. Your partner may frequently mention exes, compare your behavior to previous relationships, or make veiled references to people who understood them better. These comparisons create a persistent sense of insecurity, as you find yourself competing with idealized versions of people you've never met, or situations you never witnessed. This psychological tactic serves a dual purpose. It keeps you constantly striving to prove your worth, while simultaneously giving your partner leverage to shape your behavior. The competition extends beyond former lovers, to include friends, family members, or even fictional characters who represent some ideal. your partner subtly suggests you don't meet. You begin to notice how conversations mysteriously circle back to these comparisons, especially when you're asserting a boundary or expressing a need. This pattern gradually erodes your self-confidence while establishing an unspoken understanding that your position in their life is conditional and potentially temporary. The manipulation often works through small tests designed to establish control incrementally. You discover your partner making unusual requests framed as proof of love, asking to check your phone just to ease their mind, expecting immediate responses to messages, or creating situations that force you to choose between them and other important people or activities. Each test seems small enough in isolation that resisting appears unreasonable or untrusting. Society reinforces these dynamics by romanticizing jealousy and control as signs of passion and commitment. Popular songs celebrate possessiveness with lyrics about not being able to live without someone. Movies portray obsessive behavior as the height of romance. Social media glorifies relationships where partners monitor each other's every move. These cultural messages blur the critical distinction between love and control, teaching us to mistake anxiety for passion and fear for devotion. The nervous anticipation of wondering if you've upset your partner becomes misinterpreted as butterflies or excitement, when it's actually your body's stress response, warning you something isn't right. As we explore how we deceive ourselves in these relationships, you'll begin to understand why your own warning systems might be failing to protect you. Section 2. Self-deception. Your body often knows something is wrong long before your mind accepts it. That strange feeling in your stomach when your partner makes certain comments, the tension that appears in your shoulders when they call, the slight dread you feel when specific topics arise. These physical responses are your internal warning system trying to protect you. Yet we've become remarkably skilled at overriding these signals, dismissing them as overreacting or being too sensitive. This dismissal doesn't happen in isolation. It's reinforced by a partner who responds to your concerns with phrases like, "You're imagining things," or "Why are you so insecure?" Each time you push these feelings aside, your connection to your own intuition weakens. Psychology explains this as cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort that occurs when your experience contradicts your beliefs. Rather than acknowledging that someone you love is hurting you, your mind creates elaborate justifications. They're just stressed from work. They had a difficult childhood. They only act this way because they care so much. These rationalizations protect you from the painful truth, while simultaneously trapping you in the harmful dynamic. Meanwhile, your confidence erodes through a process psychologists call gaslighting. You begin questioning your own perceptions so thoroughly that making even simple decisions becomes fraught with anxiety. They create an environment where your thoughts must pass through an invisible filter. Will this upset them? Is this worth the potential conflict? How will they interpret this? This constant internal editing transforms you from an authentic person into someone perpetually performing to maintain peace. The most insidious aspect of this transformation is how it masks itself as love. When your partner texts constantly demanding to know where you are, you interpret it as caring rather than controlling. When they exhibit jealousy, you see devotion instead of insecurity. When they criticize your appearance or behavior, you view it as helpful guidance rather than manipulation. This confusion isn't accidental. It's deliberately cultivated by partners who benefit from your misinterpretation and reinforced by a culture that romanticizes intensity over health. The chemical reality further complicates this situation. Relationship anxiety triggers the same neurological pathways as romantic excitement, flooding your system with adrenaline and cortisol that feels similar to the dopamine and oxytocin of early romance. Your brain, unable to clearly distinguish between stress responses and attraction, interprets this heightened emotional state as passion. The dramatic cycles of tension and relief create powerful biochemical dependencies that make these relationships extraordinarily difficult to leave, despite their harmful nature. What began as genuine connection becomes a powerful addiction to emotional intensity, mistaken for depth of feeling. How do you break free from a pattern that feels both wrong and necessary, and find your way back to authentic connection? Section 3. Rediscovering self-worth. Liberation begins with recognition. The moment you clearly see the difference between genuine love and emotional dependency. Healthy love feels like stepping into a sunlit room where you can breathe freely, not a maze where you're constantly lost. It brings calm, not chaos, security, not constant testing, trust, not surveillance. You deserve relationships that amplify your light rather than dim it. The first step toward reclaiming yourself involves a painful admission that what you've been calling love might actually be addiction, familiarity, or fear of loneliness. This recognition doesn't make you weak, it makes you courageous. Many people live entire lives in unhealthy patterns, never questioning the discomfort they've normalized. Your awareness, even if painful, represents the first crack in the wall that has contained you. The journey forward isn't about finding someone new. It's about rebuilding your relationship with yourself. Begin by questioning whose voice you hear when you think about your worth. If it's your partner's critical tone rather than your own compassionate perspective, you've outsourced your self-value to someone who may not have your best interests at heart. They told you that love should hurt, that jealousy proves devotion, that control demonstrates care. But those were lies designed to keep you accepting less than you deserve. The path to healing starts with small acts of self-trust, honoring your feelings without requiring external validation, making decisions based on your needs rather than anticipated reactions, and redrawing boundaries that protect your essence. This isn't selfishness but self-preservation. Think of it as reclaiming territory that was gradually surrendered. Each time you honor your own perspective, you strengthen neural pathways that were weakened during the relationship. Each time you act according to your values, rather than from fear, you rewrite the internal script that kept you trapped. This reclamation happens unevenly. Some days you'll feel strong, other days you'll question everything. The key isn't perfection, but persistence. Surround yourself with people who reflect your worth back to you accurately, not distorted through conditions or expectations. Seek professional support, if possible. Therapists skilled in relationship trauma can help you identify patterns you might not see clearly. Remember that healing isn't linear. You'll have moments of longing for the familiar, even when the familiar was harmful. These moments don't represent failure, but the natural grieving process for both the relationship and the version of yourself lost within it. What if the love you've been desperately seeking from others has always existed within you, waiting patiently for you to claim it?